Dr. Phil didn't see who was walking through that door. But when he did, he froze. His hand went to his chest. The studio audience gasped. And for the first time in 21 seasons, Dr. Phil McGraw was completely speechless. What happened next would become the most emotional moment in the show's history. It was supposed to be a regular taping. Episode 2847. Another day helping another family navigate their crisis. Dr. Phil was mid-sentence, discussing communication strategies with a couple sitting across from him, when a producer's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Phil, we have someone here. She says you need to see her. Right now." Dr. Phil paused. This wasn't protocol. The show ran on precision timing. Interruptions didn't happen. "Who is it?" he asked quietly, still maintaining eye contact with his guests. "She won't say." "But Phil," the producer's voice cracked slightly, "you're going to want to stop." Nobody in that studio knew they were about to witness something that would change how they saw humanity. Dr. Phil made a decision that confused everyone in the room. He stood up, turned to the main camera, and did something he'd never done in 2 decades of television. "Stop the tape." The studio went completely silent. Crew members exchanged confused glances. The audience shifted uncomfortably. The couple on stage looked at each other, bewildered. "I need everyone to bear with me for a moment," Dr. Phil said, his voice steady but different somehow. Softer. "Something just came up that, well, I don't know what it is yet, but I need to find out." He walked toward stage left, away from the cameras, toward the production entrance that guests never used during filming. The boom operator instinctively followed him with the microphone. One camera operator, sensing this was important, kept rolling. Nobody expected what was about to walk through that door. The door opened slowly. A woman stepped through. She was in her early 30s, wearing a simple blue dress, her dark hair pulled back. She looked healthy, strong, but her eyes were filled with tears before she even fully entered the studio. Dr. Phil stopped walking. His entire body froze. "Rachel?" His voice was barely a whisper. The woman nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming down her face. The audience didn't understand. The crew didn't understand. But Dr. Phil understood. And in that moment, 21 years of professional composure shattered. Because Rachel Mitchell was supposed to be dead. Let's go back. 7 years earlier. Different studio, same show, different world. Rachel Mitchell had appeared on Dr. Phil as a last resort. She was 24 years old, addicted to prescription painkillers, estranged from her family, sleeping in her car. Her mother had submitted her story to the show after finding Rachel unconscious in a grocery store parking lot. The episode was titled, "My Daughter is Killing Herself and Won't Accept Help." Rachel had come on the show angry, defensive. She'd sat in that same chair where today's guests were sitting, arms crossed, refusing to make eye contact with Dr. Phil or her sobbing mother. "You don't know what it's like," Rachel had said, her voice flat, emotionless. "You sit here in your perfect studio with your perfect life and judge people like me." Dr. Phil had leaned forward. "You're right. I don't know exactly what your pain feels like. But I know what death looks like. And Rachel, you're dying." "Good," she'd responded. "Maybe that's better than this." That's when Dr. Phil did something the producers hadn't planned. He'd stood up, walked over to Rachel, and knelt down beside her chair. The cameras zoomed in, capturing something raw and unrehearsed. "Rachel, look at me." His voice was gentle but firm. "I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. Your life has value. Not because of what you've done or haven't done. Not because you're clean or using. Your life has value because you're here. You matter." Rachel had finally looked at him. Her eyes, which had been so hard and distant, suddenly looked young. Scared. Human. "I don't feel like I matter," she'd whispered. "I know. But that's the disease talking. Not you." Dr. Phil had reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Not the show's card. His personal card. This is my direct number. Not the show, not a hotline, not a referral service. Me. When you're ready, not if, when, you call that number. Day or night. You call it. Nobody watching that episode 7 years ago knew that card would save her life that very night. Rachel had left the studio that day refusing treatment. She'd crumpled the card and thrown it in the trash in the parking lot. Her mother had left in tears, certain she'd never see her daughter alive again. But at 2:47 a.m. that same night, Rachel had found herself on a bridge. She'd climbed over the railing. The water was dark below. She'd been ready to let go. Her phone had buzzed. A text from a friend who'd watched the episode. Please don't do anything stupid. Call someone. Rachel had pulled herself back over the railing, sat down on the cold concrete, and started crying. She'd cried for an hour. Then she'd remembered the card. She'd gone back to that parking lot trash can. Searched through garbage for 20 minutes until she found it. At 4:15 a.m., Rachel had called the number. Dr. Phil had answered on the second ring. This is Rachel, she'd said. I was on your show today. I'm on a bridge. I don't want to die, but I don't know how to live. Tell me where you are. Dr. Phil had said. I'm getting you help right now. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Dr. Phil had stayed on the phone with Rachel for 3 hours while coordinating with local crisis teams. He'd talked to her about everything and nothing. Her childhood dog. Her favorite movie. The time she'd won a spelling bee in 4th grade. He'd kept her talking until help arrived. Rachel had entered treatment that morning. But here's what viewers never knew. Dr. Phil had called that facility every single week for 6 months to check on her progress. He'd paid for her extended treatment when her insurance ran out. He'd connected her mother with family therapy resources. He'd done all of it quietly, without cameras, without publicity. Rachel had completed treatment. She'd relapsed once, called that number again at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and Dr. Phil had talked her through it until she agreed to go back to her support group. Then, slowly, Rachel had rebuilt her life. She'd gotten a job, reconciled with her mother, started community college, met someone, got married, and for 7 years, Dr. Phil had no idea if any of it had lasted. Until today. Until this moment. Until Rachel Mitchell walked back through that door. The studio was still frozen. Dr. Phil stood 15 feet from Rachel, hands still on his chest, tears running down his face, something the audience had never seen before. I didn't know. He started, but couldn't finish. Rachel walked toward him slowly, reaching into her purse. She pulled out something small and worn, the original business card, now laminated, clearly carried every day for 7 years. I kept this, she said, her voice shaking. Every single day for 7 years. On the days I wanted to use again, I'd hold this card and remember that someone believed I was worth saving. Dr. Phil's professional composure was gone. He was just a man, facing the living proof that his words had mattered. You saved my life, Rachel said simply. Not just that night on the bridge. Every day after. I came back to say thank you. And to tell you that I just celebrated 7 years clean. And, she paused, crying harder now. I'm a mother. I have a 2-year-old daughter. Her name is Hope. The studio erupted. The audience was on their feet, crying, applauding. The couple who'd been mid-session was in tears. Camera operators were wiping their eyes while still filming. Even the hardened production crew who'd seen everything were breaking down. Dr. Phil walked to Rachel and embraced her. Not the professional side hug of television, but the full embrace of someone who'd held on to hope in the darkest moment, and was now seeing it fulfilled. You saved yourself, Dr. Phil said into her hair. I just answered the phone. You answered at 4 a.m., Rachel responded. You stayed on the line for 3 hours. You called the facility every week. My counselor told me years later. You didn't have to do any of that. Yes, I did, Dr. Phil said firmly. Because that's what we do for people who matter. And you matter, Rachel. You always mattered. The cameras were still rolling. This wasn't supposed to be part of today's episode, but every instinct told the producers this was more important than any scheduled programming. Dr. Phil stepped back, still holding Rachel's shoulders, and turned to address the studio and cameras. This right here. This is why we do this show. Not for the ratings. Not for the drama. For moments like this. For Rachel. For every person watching right now who thinks they don't matter, who thinks it's too late, who thinks nobody cares. He turned back to Rachel. Tell them. Tell everyone watching. What do you want people who are where you were to know? Rachel faced the camera directly, still crying but strong. It feels permanent when you're in it. The pain feels like it's all there is and all there'll ever be. But it's not. If you can just hold on, if you can make that one phone call, take that one step, ask for that one bit of help, everything can change. My life was over 7 years ago. And now I have a daughter. I have a life. I have hope. She held up the laminated card. Keep the card. Keep the number. Keep the lifeline. Whatever it is for you. Keep it. The audience's applause was deafening. Dr. Phil turned to his producers. Clear the rest of today's schedule. I want Rachel's mother here. I want to meet Hope. I want to document this properly because people need to see that recovery is real. What followed was unlike anything in the show's history. Rachel's mother was brought from the green room. She'd been the one who'd arranged the surprise, working with producers for 3 months. The reunion between mother and daughter had the entire studio in tears. Then, from backstage, Rachel's husband carried out a little girl with dark curls and her mother's eyes. Dr. Phil knelt down. Hi, Hope. I'm Dr. Phil. The little girl smiled and waved shyly. Your mommy is one of the bravest people I've ever met. Dr. Phil told her. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. After the cameras stopped rolling, Dr. Phil did something else unusual. He invited Rachel, her family, and the entire studio audience to stay for an extended conversation about recovery, hope, and the importance of showing up for people in crisis. He brought out members of his clinical team, shared resources, gave out helpline numbers, turned what was supposed to be a standard episode about marriage counseling into an impromptu intervention of hope for anyone watching who needed it. If you're watching this and you're struggling, Dr. Phil said directly to camera, I want you to hear me clearly. It is not too late. You are not too far gone. You matter. Your life has value. There are people ready to help you, you just have to reach out. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 988. Substance Abuse Hotline, 1-800-662-4357. Keep these numbers. Use them. Let someone answer your 4 a.m. call. Rachel stayed for the entire taping, sitting in the audience, her mother on one side and her husband holding Hope on the other. And when Dr. Phil finished his final message to viewers, she stood up and applauded him. The episode aired 3 weeks later and became the most watched episode in the show's history. But more important than the ratings were the calls. The week that episode aired, crisis hotlines reported a 34% increase in calls from people seeking help. 12 different people reached out to say that Rachel's story had stopped them from ending their own lives. Treatment facilities across the country reported increased enrollment. Rachel's story had done what Dr. Phil had always hoped his platform would do, prove that change was possible, that help was available, and that no one was beyond hope. 6 months after the episode aired, Dr. Phil received an envelope at his office. Inside was a photo of Rachel, her mother, her husband, and Hope at a park, all smiling. On the back, in Rachel's handwriting, You're 7.5. Still here. Still fighting. Still grateful. Thank you for answering the phone. Dr. Phil kept that photo on his desk. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the most important thing you can do is show up. Answer the phone. Hand someone a card. Tell them they matter. Because Rachel Mitchell was supposed to be dead. But she wasn't. She was alive. She was a mother. She was proof that redemption isn't just possible, it's waiting for anyone brave enough to reach out and grab it. Years later, when interviewers asked Dr. Phil about the most impactful moment of his career, he never talked about ratings or awards or celebrity guests. He talked about a woman who walked through a door, held up a laminated card, and said 5 words that made everything worth it. "You saved my life, Phil." And in the quiet of that moment, in the stillness of that embrace, in the tears of a studio full of strangers who'd witnessed hope incarnate, Dr. Phil learned what he'd always taught but never fully felt. Sometimes showing up is enough. Sometimes caring is enough. Sometimes just being there when someone needs you most is all it takes to change everything. Rachel Mitchell lived because Dr. Phil answered the phone. But more importantly, Rachel Mitchell lived because she made the call. And that's the lesson that mattered most. Hope is always just one call away, one card away, one moment of courage away from changing everything. The show ended that day the way it always did, with Dr. Phil's signature sign-off. "I'll see you next time." But everyone in that studio knew they'd witnessed something different. Not just television. Not just a show. But the living proof that second chances are real, that transformation is possible, and that sometimes, when you least expect it, hope walks back through the door to say thank you. And in that moment, everyone understood, we all have the power to be someone's lifeline.